Hey there. Diving into your source material on these 7 divine powers has me really intrigued.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, framing them not just as good qualities, but as powers we all possess.
Right.
That's a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, it really makes you think about these qualities in a new light. And the idea that they're not just lofty ideals, but actual forces within us, waiting to be tapped into,
Right.
that's powerful stuff.
So we're talking insight, creation, resilience, influence, healing, courage, and love. I'm ready to explore. Where should we start?
Well, the text begins with insight, and I think it's a fitting place to begin. It sets the stage for understanding the other six powers.
Makes sense.
I
So
sense
tell me more about this insight. It's giving me Oracle of Delphi vibes from the source material, cryptic messages, hidden truths, all that good stuff.
Yeah. It's a great comparison because the text emphasizes that this isn't just about being observant, it's about connecting to a deeper level of understanding.
Right.
Think of it like this. You can look at a beautiful tapestry and appreciate the colors and patterns, but insight allows you to understand the story it tells, the history woven into each thread.
Okay, so it's about seeing beyond the surface.
Yeah.
But how does that play out in everyday life? I mean, I'm not negotiating peace treaties or anything.
That's the beauty of it, though. The text gives a great example. Imagine you're in a meeting at work and there's a disagreement about a new project. Insight allows you to not only hear what's being said, but to understand the unspoken needs and motivations driving those different viewpoints.
Okay.
You can begin to see the path to compromise or even collaboration that wouldn't be apparent otherwise.
That makes a lot of sense. So with insight, we might be able to navigate those tricky interpersonal situations more effectively. Pretty useful.
Absolutely. And this leads us perfectly into the next power, creation.
Right. And not just creating in the artistic sense, right? The text used the example of Bezel, who designed the Ark of the Covenant. So we're talking about something with a bit more divine inspiration.
Exactly. The text emphasizes that Bezal's creations weren't just beautiful or functional objects, they were imbued with a deeper meaning because he was so connected to a higher purpose.
So it's not just about being skilled. It's about aligning your work with something bigger than yourself. What's fascinating to me is how this applies not just to artists, but to anyone in any field. You, as the listener, shared examples of your work in Listener's Field. How can you connect your work to a larger purpose, bringing that same spiritual energy to what you do?
That's a great question to consider, and it highlights the transformative potential of this power. Whether you're a scientist searching for a cure, an entrepreneur building a business, or a teacher shaping young minds, connecting your work to a higher purpose can infuse it with a sense of meaning and impact.
It's like that feeling of being truly in your element, doing work that feels both meaningful and fulfilling. I like it. Okay, we've talked about insight and creation. What are resilience? I feel like that's a power a lot of us could use a little more of these days.
Couldn't agree more. And this is where the text gets really interesting. It doesn't just talk about bouncing back, it uses the phrase thriving in the face of adversity. There's a subtle but important difference there.
You're right. So it's not about avoiding challenges altogether. It's about finding a way to grow and even flourish despite them.
Exactly. And the text suggests that this ability to thrive in the face of challenges stems from a deep connection to something beyond ourselves.
Okay, so instead of just gritting our teeth and powering through, this kind of resilience is about tapping into a deeper well of inner strength. I'm curious to unpack this more.
It's like the text suggests true resilience isn't just about willpower, it's about tacking into a source of strength and guidance that helps us navigate challenges with grace and even find meaning in those experiences.
Hmm. That makes me think about times when I've witnessed people facing incredibly difficult situations, and yet they somehow find the strength to not only keep going, but to inspire others. It's like their resilience becomes a beacon of hope.
Precisely. And that segues beautifully into the next power on our list, influence. Because that's often what resilience looks like in action. It inspires and uplifts those around us. But as we dive into influence, it's important to remember this isn't about manipulating or controlling others. It's about inspiring positive change through the force of who you are.
Right, it's not about forcing your will on others, but more about how your actions and choices create a sort of ripple effect that extends outwards. The source material called these silent declarations.
Exactly. The text gives the example of someone who champions sustainability in their workplace. They might not be giving speeches or forcing their colleagues to recycle, but their own commitment to eco-conscious choices can inspire those around them to reconsider their own habits. That's influence in its most authentic form.
I love that example. It's a good reminder That we don't always need to be in a position of formal authority to make a difference. It's about walking the talk, living in alignment with our values, and trusting that it will have a positive impact on those around us. What I find really interesting is how the text connects this idea of influence to the power of healing.
Absolutely. They're more intertwined than you might think at first. Because true healing, according to the text, goes beyond just fixing what's broken on the surface. It's about restoring wholeness. And that often requires the courage to influence situations in a way that brings people together rather than driving them apart.
So it's not just about healing individual wounds, but also about healing relationships, communities, even systems. That's a powerful concept. The text mentions the story of Joseph forgiving his brothers. That feels like a really powerful example of this kind of healing in action.
It's a perfect example because it highlights a transformative power of forgiveness. Instead of perpetuating a cycle of anger and resentment, Joseph's choice to forgive his brothers allowed for reconciliation, ultimately leading to the healing of a deep family wound.
It makes you wonder how differently conflicts would play out if we approach them with that same spirit of forgiveness and understanding.
It's a powerful question and one that leads us directly to the next power, courage. Because choosing forgiveness, especially in the face of deep hurt or betrayal, requires immense courage.
That's a great point. It's easy to think of courage as this grand, heroic quality, slaying dragons, rescuing people from burning buildings. You
Yeah.
know the drill. But what you're saying is that sometimes the most courageous acts are the quiet, internal ones.
Absolutely. Think about standing up for what you believe in, even when it's unpopular, or speaking truth to power, even when it feels risky, or even just acknowledging your own mistakes and making amends. These all require a deep well of courage.
And that kind of courage can be so inspiring to witness. It reminds me of the example the text used, Joan of Arc. Talk about someone who embodies this fearless pursuit of what's right, even in the face of incredible opposition.
She's a powerful reminder that one person's courage can have a ripple effect, inspiring others to tap into their own inner strength and fight for what they believe in.
It's like that Margaret Mead quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Okay, so we've covered insight, creation, resilience, influence, healing, and courage, which brings us to the final power in this fascinating set, love. When I first saw love on this list of powers, I thought, how does that fit in? But now I'm seeing how it ties everything
That's
together.
the common thread, right?
Yeah.
I remember this one part in the text that really got me. It talked about love as this unconditional force, like a reflection of, something bigger than ourselves. Really powerful.
It is powerful, but kind of intimidating too. How do we even begin to tap into that kind of love in our regular lives? It feels like a lot.
Yeah, it can feel overwhelming. But what I like about how the text approaches this is it's not about some big dramatic thing. It's about the little things we do every day.
Like, instead of composing love sonnets, it's about doing the dishes even when it's not your turn. Or actually listening to a friend who needs to vent, even when you're exhausted.
That's it. Choosing compassion, choosing to forgive, trying to understand instead of just blaming those things that make seem small. But those little choices, that's how we build a more loving world, right?
It makes me think of that quote, I think it's Mother Teresa. Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love. It's like, no matter what we're doing, bringing that energy of love to it.
That's what's so amazing about seeing love as this divine power. We all have that opportunity right now to heal, to connect, to make things better just by choosing to act with love.
It's a good reminder that these 7 powers, insight, creation, resilience, influence, healing, courage, and love, they're not just ideas. They're real, and they're within us. It's up to us to cultivate them, to let them out into the world.
And as we've been talking about, they all work together. When you strengthen one, it strengthens the others, and it just keeps going, rippling out, changing not just our lives, but the lives of the people around us.
Exactly. It's like we were given this incredible toolkit, everything we need for a more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
And the best part, we already have all the tools.
We do, and the journey itself, exploring these powers, finding our own way to use them, that's where the magic is.
I love that. It's about the journey. It's about growing and discovering along the way. Well, on that note, thank you so much for coming on this journey with us. And to you, listener, thanks for sharing this amazing material with us. Remember, the power to create a more meaningful life is already within you. Keep exploring those incredible powers, and until next time.